I am going to introduce them to you. Mr. Wadih, João, Scandar, Neto from IBGE, and Arturo Blancas Espejo from INEGI. We're going to start with the first presentation, integration of geographic and geospatial information in the case of Brazil. Our guest comes from Brazil. He currently is the Director of the Sciences in IBGE, and he is also Director of the Geosciences of Brazilian Institute of Geography and Statistics since 2000, where he coordinated the Sustainable Development Series in 2002. He has participated in meetings and international working groups promoted by the United Nations Environment Program, Division of Statistics, United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean. He is agronomist. He graduated from the University of Sao Paulo in Brazil, and he has a Master of Population Studies and Social Research at the National School of Statistical Sciences. Welcome, Wadih. Thank you very much, and you have the floor. Good afternoon. I am going to try to speak in Spanish, but it's going to be a mixture between Portuguese and Spanish, but I think you're going to be able to understand. When I was invited to present this, I thought that we could talk about this topic from different perspectives. For example, we could have a more conceptual perspective of all of these specialties because they can complement each other. Or maybe it could be a presentation like many others I've seen today with specific examples to show what is happening.
Pero yo optei.
However, I decided to focus my presentation on what we are actually doing in Brazil, IGBE and other agencies. But most of the times we can think that they are very simple things. However, they're not. I'm actually including the surveys, census, production of statistics based on geospatial data for the entire country. So there we can
Producir nuevas estatísticas a partir de la interpretación, por ejemplo, de imágenes satelitales.
Is there anybody who did interpretation of this presentation into English? If so, please let us know back in the booth or raise your hand. Is anybody listening to the interpretation in English? Thank you.
De acompanhamento de la operación de las encuestas y de los censos. También como está sendo usado, como está sendo usado para analisar los datos antes de las publicaciones.
In order to analyze the data of presentations, to disseminate the information.
El próximo. Bueno, Brasil tiene más de 8 millones de kilómetros cuadrados, 8.500.000 kilómetros cuadrados. Como se diz em espanhol? Está correto. una área de 3.600.000 kilómetros cuadrados de océanos e mares, subdomínio territorial, 27 estados, mais de 5.570 municípios e uma população em 2010
We will resume the interpretation in a few minutes. Thank you.
que hoje seguramente já supera os 200 milhões de habitantes. Este mapa que está ao lado é ilustrativo para mostrar um pouco o tamanho de nosso desafio, ¿sí? Porque em amarillo se percebe em la mesma escala um mapa da Europa dentro do mapa do Brasil. Então se pode ver que parte desde a Península Ibérica hasta a Europa Oriental, toda cabe dentro do território brasileiro e ainda sobra muita área, né? Então, quando estamos falando de um país em desenvolvimento, que não tem tantos recursos como tendrían, por lo menos antes de las crisis, los países europeus, nosotros temos que ser muito criativos para fazer sempre mais com menos, ¿sí? Dar conta de nossa missão, sempre com uma restrição de recursos muito grande. Lo seguinte. Bueno, la informação geoespacial pode ser usada no planejamento territorial, na planificação territorial, para a indústria de petróleo, para a construção de viviendas, transporte, construção de plantas de geração de eletricidade hidrelétrica, abastecimento da água, energia e muitas outras informações. Se necessita saber onde as coisas ocorrem, não somente quantos são, ou quanto custa, ou como são, mas onde se ubicam os fenômenos em la superfície do território. E o principal motivo é ver como se pode utilizar a informação geográfica junto com a informação estatística para poupar muito em termos de dinheiro, de tempo, para se obter uma informação de... Agora tem autonomia. E isto é uma vantagem hoje de Brasil e de México, que tem em la mesma instituição a geografia e a estatística. Pero nem sempre foi assim. Parecia que estavam em la mesma instituição, pero eram dois mundos separados, cada um seguindo sua missão e seu programa de trabalho. E hoje há uma política deliberada da direção atual de IBGE de cada vez mais integrar estes dois mundos, estas duas especialidades, para produzir uma informação de melhor qualidade e mais completa. Bom, vamos partir então para falar um pouquinho sobre a produção de estatísticas a partir da informação geográfica. Aqui há um exemplo de la cobertura e uso de la tierra en el país. En verde são as terras mais com vegetação natural, as classes mais amarelas são as classes com agricultura ou pastagens, como se diz? Pastizales. Y este es, aquí tiene para, está com uma pequena diferença, ali está o título aqui, 2010, 2010. A partir desta informação, se pode generar, por exemplo, as tablas de las contas físicas em termos de asset, estoques, los estoques do uso da terra, exatamente de acordo com as recomendações das Nações Unidas que estão nos manuais de contas econômico-ambientais. Então, acá estão os números, as estatísticas sacadas daquela informação. Eu sei que México também tem o inventário florestal, então eu sei que é muito fácil se fazer esta transposição de los mapas de cobertura e uso da terra para as tablas de estoques de las contas econômicas ambientais. Sim? O que há diferente neste projeto é que é um projeto barato, rápido e eficiente. Barato porque utilizamos imagens de média resolução, do satélite MODIS, do sensor MODIS. Hacemos isto sobre uma grade territorial de 1 km², uma grade territorial para fins estatísticos, então se classifica cada uma delas 8 milhões de células, mais de 8 milhões, né, para fazer as boedas, temos 9 milhões e 200 mil células que são classificadas, uma a uma, depois é só a agregação e a comparação no tempo. E isto tem outra vantagem, se este sensor é desativado, como a informação está em uma célula, numa grade territorial, se pode, com o uso de outro sensor, se dar continuidade ao projeto sem termos que falar, não dá porque são incompatíveis as informações do sensor tal com o sensor outro. E isso podemos fazer com 10 pessoas trabalhando, em um ano se classificar semi-automaticamente todo o território brasileiro. Então, é viável se ter as contas de estoques anualmente para o país. E se usa também software livre, um software desenvolvido pelo INPE de Brasil, Instituto Nacional de Pesquisas Espaciais, que é o Spring. Se faz a classificação primeiro automática, depois uma revisão supervisionada em las regiões onde há dúvidas. Eu creio que hoje a principal tarefa do mundo estatístico e geográfico é trabalhar a classificação padronizada, porque a divisão de estatísticas da ONU ainda não tem uma classificação padronizada do uso e cobertura da terra para ver comparações internacionais. Pode me arrumar um pouquinho de água? Tem aqui. Tem aqui, obrigado. Graças. Bom, outro exemplo é a partir do inventário de rocas na Amazônia, se pode Seria muito bueno se funcionasse isso aí. Se pode fazer as estatísticas por tipo de roca, las rocas ígneas, metamórficas ou sedimentares, e de isto pode-se ter uma ideia de potencial mineral, de recursos naturais, e principalmente estimativas do potencial hídrico em las rocas sedimentares. Então, esse é um input importante para as contas de las águas, por exemplo, de estoques de los aquíferos subterrâneos. ¿Sí? Aqui exemplo de já uma análise, uma interpretação de aquela informação anterior, gerando uma ideia do potencial hídrico de aquíferos subterrâneos. Bueno, la operación de los censos y encuestas. Este fue, digamos, la área en que el IBGE avanzó muy rápidamente en años próximos, porque toda la base, la cartografía para hacer tanto los censos como después en los años intercensitarios, la muestra para las encuestas foi feita de forma digital. Esta base territorial hoje ela é atualizada.
The interpretation booth is sorry. The speaker is speaking in Portuguese and we cannot interpret from Portuguese. Thank you.
Os produtos de la cartografia del país, del IBGE e, por conseguinte, del país, de la cartografia oficial, certo? Então, se trabalha na pré-enumeração, na pós-enumeração, sempre se utilizando dispositivo móvel para fazer a coleta, onde os entrevistadores levam o questionário, o mapa, localizando exatamente onde é o setor. Assim não se diminui o risco de ele sair andando e fazer a encuesta em outro setor. São 300 mil, mais de 300 mil setores censitários, setores de enumeração no país. Né? Eu já tenho 5 minutos e ainda estou no começo da minha apresentação. Não sei o que eu vou fazer, eu vou correr. Bueno, para analisar as informações, sim, esta é um exemplo de la região de influência de las cidades, de toda a rede de hierarquia urbana de Brasil, onde se combina en el espaço informações estatísticas para fazer toda esta rede com as sedes mais importantes de regiões metropolitanas, os centros de segundo nível, terceiro nível e assim por diante. Com isso também se pode, é um auxiliar importante para definir todas as regiões em escala menor que a divisão administrativa de 27 estados. E aqui também, com análise espacial, se pode ver que os centros de las regiões têm rendimento domiciliar muito mais alto do que aqueles que estão no entorno, na periferia de los centros. Então, há esta relação não somente em país, grandes centros ou na periferia distante, em cada micro-região, ou mesorregião, também se observa estas desigualdades. Né? Para disseminar informação, estou correndo, hein? Este é um produto novo, o Atlas do Censo Demográfico, que muda, é um ponto de inflexão, um novo paradigma em termos de divulgação de Atlas. Atlas, na verdade, são produtos espaciais que combinam por si só, já com informações estatísticas e informações geoespaciais, pero com uma visão geográfica, já são produtos com alto valor agregado, porque ele tem uma lógica, o temário todo conta uma história do país. Sim? E hoje se pode ver, por exemplo, o mapa exatamente como está em papel, em la prancha em formato PDF, com seus metadados, todos os metadados de cada prancha estão publicados, ou de cada camada que está em la prancha, e depois se pode, com um clique, pegar toda essa prancha e se transformar em um geoserviço, em arquivos WFS, que o usuário pode juntar com outras informações disponíveis na infraestrutura de dados nacionais, ou pode combinar dentro do Atlas com outras camadas e fazer suas análises, agregando ou retirando informações que estão em excesso. E se pode exportar toda a informação em formato KML, em formato shape, em formato de imagem em GIF, ou somente as tablas de dados em formato CSV. Toda esta plataforma foi desenvolvida no próprio IBGE com software livre e está disponível aí mais desta forma. Isto é um aproveitamento do que foi desenvolvido para a INDE, para a Infraestrutura Nacional de Dados Espaciais, que é a próxima ação que eu quero comentar, onde o IBGE dá o apoio técnico para o desenvolvimento da INDE, e também é a principal entidade na gestão de Diretório Brasileiro de Dados Geoespaciais. Hoje congrega mais de 19 instituições federais. Aqui estão os portais, o principal da INDE, e o visualizador de dados. Aqui um exemplo, por baixo tem uma capa de dados do IBGE, que é o PIB per capita dos municípios. Em rojo, é uma informação das estradas de rodagem construídas, da onde se pretende fazer investimento, e em negro, as ferrovias que se pretende construir. São informações do Ministério de Planificação do Brasil. Então, se pode combinar a informação geográfica com a informação estatística de várias fontes para fazer as análises e barrar. Estou quase terminando. Bueno, aqui é só uma conclusão. Usar todas essas informações para, por exemplo, a gestão de riscos, planificação territorial, e tudo que vocês viram durante o seminário, durante a conferência, que se pode fazer com essa combinação. Tudo isto que eu apresentei não são ideias, não são possibilidades, estão efetivamente funcionando. O Atlas de Censo Demográfico e a Infraestrutura Nacional de Dados Espaciais estão na web, online. Agora, se alguém tiver aí logado, pode entrar naqueles URLs e vá explorar um pouquinho melhor esses produtos. Muitas graças e perdão por ter me estendido um pouquinho.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. You didn't use that much time. Let's go to the next presentation, which is the DENUE, as an example of a success case in the work between statistics and geography. Arturo Blancas Espejo, who is going to present this work, studied in the National Autonomous University of Mexico. He has Planning and Statistics postgraduate studies. Now he is the General Director of Economic Statistics in INEGI, where he also worked in the economic census and as a director of cadastral cartography. He also was the president of Indesol and the central administrator of updating and registration of the tax administrative service. Arturo, you have the floor. Thank you, everybody. I'm very happy to be here in this meeting and sharing the table with a representative of IBGE. And I'm very happy because both institutions are the only institutions, the official statistics institutions in the world, where we use both statistics and geography. Even though we have been working with these two activities together, every day is even more evident that we need to work with these two areas together. Both the IBGE and Mexico, we already do this. So now I'm going to talk about the Economic Unit's National Statistic Directory, which is work that can be seen from the statistics point of view or the geographical point of view or just statistics point of view, if that name even exists. And some of us use it with a certain frequency. I am going to talk about georeferencing. I am going to talk about this directory, which is the NUE. I am going to show you a brief video on what are the geographic attributes of this product and what are the factors that have allowed the creation and update of this directory from our point of view. Two very simple concepts. One of them is georeferencing in the terms of how we are applying it right now. But throughout this conference, we have heard different ideas of how statistics happen in one place, or every place is related to some statistical data. At the end of the day, we think that this is information that has to work together in order to give better and more information to users. These two definitions were given by an expert committee, and in the morning, Dr. Soho was talking about this expert committee. So the need of having geographic areas in the statistics unit in the United Nations, and the other way around as well. This is more evident day after day. The directory is an updated directory of all of the active locations in the country. It offers information of the location and identification of establishments. We have, it is a directory that is being updated every year through a mechanism, and I can see that some of the participants of other states that don't belong to INEGI are here today because it is a directory that is not exclusive of INEGI. Several institutions help us to keep it updated. We know that the very small entities move really quickly and they grow even faster. They move a lot, but they are always incorporated to the directory. Now, I am going to show you a brief video. Can we go back to the beginning? This is a video of the directory. The system can be found on the internet, it's free, anybody can have access to it.
Quisiera primero, digamos, ¿qué es lo que vamos a ver ahí en este? Están todas las clases de...
What are we going to see here first? We are going to see all of the activities that we have. It's more than 1,000 activities that are located by the size of the entity and geographic location. You can actually combine this information, activities, sizes, and geographic areas. Let's say that we want to find restaurants in an area, in a neighborhood of Mexico City. Let's say that we are going to look up for restaurants. We can actually type the word restaurant, or maybe you know the type of activity and you can locate it that way. You can select the type of restaurant, the size of restaurant that you want. Let's think about the big ones. Let's think about geographic area. We can do this in the entire country. Let's think of municipality in the federal district. And let's look up a restaurant in the downtown of Mexico City for the people who come from other countries. So right now, this is on an online tab. It gets interesting when you ask it to look up for the restaurants that we're looking for. We zoom in again, and we can identify one restaurant. And we found this restaurant, which is Sanborns Hermanos, and there is another Sanborns next to Centro Banamex. It is well known, and if you see the information, you can see the size, the type of activities, and 22 variables that are not confidential according to the government board of the institute. And if it has more characteristics, you can actually get into its website, send an email, or whatever you need. You can actually check its phone number. And since we have an interface with Google, you can actually have the street view. So that is what we're looking at right now, the restaurant that we're talking about. This way, you can check all of the entities that have these characteristics. You can also have a 3D view of it. And you can even see all of the economic units. We talked about restaurants, but it can be any economic unit that are in that section of the city. You cannot see the density because it's outside of this area. So we are mixing statistical information with the geographical space in a direct way. This system has been working since June 2010, and we have been updating it. We have come up with 5 versions of it, and we are about to launch the next generation of this directory. The next generation is going to be available in about a week and a half. And this next version is going to be interactive, so the user is going to be able to add data directly in the system so that other users can have access to this information. Of course, there are going to be filters in order to avoid problems. This directory has been really successful in the different areas, public, academy, government, and private. And let's see the uses of this directory. It has been used to design public policies at the regional and state level. Of course, there is an application for natural disasters because there was there were a lot of floodings in Tabasco 2 years ago, and we identified affected units in Tabasco. So this directory can be used for that as well. It also lets us study supply and demand, carry out market studies, identify clients and suppliers. You can also see other types of uses like sample frameworks. It has been also used in academy, clusters, productive chains, population and demographics, because it has a direct relationship with the national housing inventory, which is another very successful case between with the relationship between statistics and geographic information. Something that we have implemented in order to see if this directory is being used or not is consultations to this directory. You can see how it has been growing in the last 2.5 years according to the different types of software that we have been applying. In 2012, there was an increase because we started using Google. Before, we were working with a free software created in the institute with a digital Mexican map, but there was an increase in the use because of the interaction with Google. What are the fundamental attributes from the geographic point of view? Well, on the one hand, we have national coverage. We have all of the geo-referenced economic units, and this was available because this directory was based on the economic census from 2009, which was made by foot with a machine that, like the one you saw in the previous presentation, a little bit older because it was in 2009. And this allowed us to do the geo-referencing of economic units. Of course, we're using the updated cartography and national statistics. We have the General Direction of Geography and the state coordinates of INEGI, which allowed to come up with cartography. And we have also the 3D images. As a last topic, I would like to talk about our point of view of the key factors for the success case of the relationship between statistics and geography. On the one hand, the new law of the Institute talks about relating things together, and we have the different state units working together. And in the next slide, you can see that there are technical rules that are specific, created by the board, and are published. And this allows us to work with the different government entities. Another key factor has been the organization of the system. We have a specialized committee, technical committee within the system that specifically works in the National Statistics Directory, and it lets us come up with the technical rules, but also to lets us update the National Statistics Directory. Another key factor is that in the same institution we have the statistics and geographic area, which helps us to come to an agreement where we can't come to an agreement. Another key factor is are the technical elements that have allowed us to create this directory. On the one hand, of course, digitalized cartography, the possibility of work with very large databases. For example, we have been working with SAT, and we have been exchanging information with the Federal Electricity Commission. This is not easy, especially because there are no laws for this, because we're still working on coming up with laws of the economic activities, digitalization, and even when there are no rules on how to set up the fields of this territory. And we have been working for 2 years with different institutions to be able to talk to each other. Of course, I mean, we have been having results, but it is also clear that we are not completely communicating among the institutions, and that is the purpose. Of course, we have a technological infrastructure. The platform, which is the last generation platform, and the relationship with Google, this has been really easy because, as I mentioned before, the user actually knows how to use this type of systems. On the other hand, the possibility of doing the economic census, which is the origin of the economic information and statistic information through a mobile computer device. And the next year, when we do the census again, we are going to use a more modern element than the one that was shown before, which is a classmate type. So a digital tablet will allow us to identify all of the points and do the counting from there. This is a product that we wanted to show you, and that from our point of view has two different parts. On the one hand, it helps to disseminate information, but on the other hand, it is actually a geostatistical product. That is to say, using both the geographic and statistic information allows us to have several applications that are beneficial for the users and not only disseminate information. It allows us to do many more things. We believe that this is the last new thing that we have done in our area, but of course they're having other examples in the institute that talk about the relationship between geographic and statistics and the great advantages that can come out of this relationship when we use them in the same platform. So this is the NOI, and we're here to help. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arturo. Thank you, Wadih. I would like to see if there is any question amongst the audience. Miguel Herrera from INEGI, a question for our distinguished visitor from Brazil, João. As you were saying, more than 8 million square kilometers that your country has, well, it makes it one of the biggest countries in the world. I would say then that it would be a great challenge for your country to have the whole cartography of the territory. So my question would be, actually, how do you ensure the geographic coverage of a population census or a farming census or an agricultural census? What is the level of detail and disaggregation of such cartography so that you can do these census? In our cartography, we use all the resources available. I'm just giving an attempt for translation because he doesn't speak Spanish. There are some regular areas where we have 150,000 scale, which is not ideal, but it's what we use in the biggest cities. Normally, municipalities have a more precise cartography, and so there are agreements to see if there are any mistakes. We correct them and we value them and validate, and we make all the corrections of the names of the streets, for example. And so we're building on this land base. And so now we're doing a new project for the production of topography mapping to feed this base with different scales according to the needs, where there is more population or where there is a sparse population. We use images with high resolution satellite images. And then we extract them for the line cartography, and we do that in agreement with the states, municipalities, etc. And so we work on the basis of exchange and peer validation amongst the federation and the other administrative levels. Good afternoon, Wadih from the Planning Institute of the Municipality of León. The question I was going to ask you has been responded already regarding the agreement with the municipality, so I would like to ask you on top of that if the planning institutes have or participate in the transfer of information or exchange of information, or I would like to know the role that they play. Especially with the National Infrastructure of Spatial Data, there is an action plan where the first phase was centered in the federal organisms because it was easier. It was a phase that lasted 3 to 4 years, and right now we are beginning to enter the data from the states and from big municipalities such as Rio de Janeiro and São Paulo that has a data structure well organized, and so they are inputting their data and adding on to the infrastructure patterns. The main source of data from the municipalities are census, of course. Tolls and surveys do not have enough sample to be representative of the municipalities. But we do some other surveys regarding public management, the research of information per municipality. So there are other initiatives that help us add on the information collected from the municipalities, both statistical and geospatial information. I'm sorry, I can't translate that. That's Portuguese.
No mundo que há geografia e estatística no mesmo instituto. Há par de anos atrás, eu descobri numa pesquisa que existe mais país com estas características, que é Bahrein, na Arábia Saudita. Sim, é chico. Imagino que não há tantos funcionários como há em INR e em BRE, mas Bahrein também há geografia e estatística no mesmo instituto. Se tu queres saber, coloque em Google Bahrein Estatísticas que tu chega no instituto. ¿Tá?
Okay. Gracias por el comentario. Hay una pregunta más por acá.
There's one more question, and I believe someone on the back also wanted to ask a question. So to speed up, maybe we'll ask these two questions first, and then we'll listen to the answers. From Chile, Matías Fortuño, I would like to ask your help, because the UNIGGM has declared on the 5th working areas, said that they wanted to put the statistics topic together with the spatial topic, and they said that this is very difficult, and I don't understand why they say it is difficult. In fact, it is easy. So maybe if you could help me understand why is it difficult and why do you have to split it, because that's one of my questions. And the second question would be, maybe you can help me with my homework. I have a meeting, given that I represent the geospatial world in Chile, I have a meeting with the director of the National Institute of Statistics in Chile. So what would be your opinion? We do not work together, so what would you think, or what would be the good ideas on how to enable a dialogue with this person. Ezequiel Perez from the Dwelling Commission in Guanajuato State. The question is for our colleague from INEGI. Regarding the NUE, we know that the economical census from 2008 is published in 2009. So in that updating processes, what would be, or how often do you update this? Every 5 years, or do you update that with the Ministry of Treasury and the Health Ministry, or how do you update your information? Luis Ángel Rodríguez from INEGI and professor of the Technological Institute of Monterrey. For our colleague from INEGI, I have tried to teach my students what the NUE is, and in fact they always have a very good impression of that produce, but finally it's not my expertise field to teach them how it works, because I suppose it has different deeps and attributes and features. So how can we, my question would be, how can we establish a network of your colleagues from your expertise area to help this type of students? Who would like to start? Arturo, you haven't spoken really. Thanks to the representative of IBGE. Of course, Bahrain had said something about it. I have heard about that. It's good that you have checked that information, and we're going to use that as well as another example. And regarding the question of our colleague from Chile, in fact, it is very difficult to work or begin to work when you don't have an idea of your destination. I think that something that you could tell the chairman of the INE in Chile would be, from my perspective, is that data today, statistical data today, if they don't have a base in the ground, are useless. And so we need to have the capacity of conveying the statistical information related to the space where the economical activity is developing, whether it is by community, per neighborhood, per state, or whatever. But we need to give it more room, because the economical activity and the social demographic activity does not happen in the air. It stays in the ground, and it stays in a very specific and delimited area. So I know it is difficult, because sometimes the geographical side or part says, well, geography, it's the most important part, and the statistics experts say the contrary, and this is why it is difficult. But that's the option that you have. Regarding updating of the census, of course, every 5 years we make an update of the census. We will do the census on February this year, so next year, so we're going to be publishing it updated by the end of the year. But that's something that we do in a global level. But we publish at the NUE once per year, updating the big entities from the biggest sectors and from like the whatever relates to manufacturing, mining, services, etc. Where do we get information from? 3 main sources: SAT, which is the Ministry of Treasury, from the economical surveys of the Institute, and from the Federal Commission of Electricity. And soon we will get information from the Health Ministry, IMSS and ISTE. So all of this, we're doing georeferences of all that. We're going yet to the field to put the things in order because we still do not have very clear the directions. But once we'll do that, once we have identified all the entities, it would be very easy. Regarding how I can put the people from the the Monterrey in touch with the experts, I would recommend two things to you. We can, of course, ask the organizing committee of this summit to help you. One is IGE at Your Hand, which is a very specific program conducted with entities to train on a very specific topic. That's one of the things that you can do. And the second thing that you can do is to give a specific course, which is called the INEGI course or seminar, where you introduce very specific topics. And of course, we can do that training. We can give a training on the NUE whenever you want. We can organize that if you come to see me after this conference. I am sorry, I can't translate because our colleague does not speak Spanish. I don't understand Portuguese.
Para um estadístico acostumado com encuesta econômica ou com contas nacionais, você falar sobre elipsoide, a qualidade del ponto de GPS que você capta com erro tal. Não são linguagens comuns, um não sabe do que o outro está falando. O outro habla sobre mostreio maestra que se vai usar e fazer uma rotação. Fala, mas o que eu tenho a ver com isto? O que isto impacta em meu trabalho? Impacta. Você pode usar, por exemplo, a mesma mostreo para ser um programa de compilação e de recompilação de nomes geográficos. Então, há todo um intercâmbio de saberes que não é fácil. Eu estive numa reunião recente em grupo de expertos em contas econômicos ambientais das Nações Unidas. O representante de França ha dicho que el INSEE no hace la integración porque es muy caro. Imagina se é caro para a França, que dirá para o Brasil, para o México. Pero, na verdade, não é caro. Se ele for pagar uma consultoria para hacer toda a incorporação de geotecnologias que nós propiciamos às pesquisas, realmente é muito caro. Pero nós podemos fazer isso internamente, uma capacitação e um diálogo. Agora, para começar diálogo, vocês têm uma ideia em Chile, não têm? Eu creio que é a melhor forma de começar diálogo com as linhas na disseminação da informação estatística por seus diversos níveis subnacionais e colocando isto em las ideias, em la ideia. Eu creio que isto tem um impacto muito grande sobre os tomadores de decisão quando pega visualizador qualquer e pode ver seus dados e seus metadados, principalmente divulgados em la ideia. Isto é bom jeito de começar uma relação.
Muchas gracias. Yo me permito.
Thank you. I would like to add up something to that. I believe that regarding the need of statistical data in this space, I can say that the most efficient public policies are the ones that go into the detail, the greater detail. Those who are more have more impact on the results are the ones that are more detailed in regards to where do you have to implement them or apply them. So detail in data regarding geography is very efficient for the policy that we are going to implement, or the program, or the support program. I would like to ask you for 1 more minute to just give an acknowledgement to our speakers for their very interesting, rich, and remarkable speech. Wadih, Scandar, Neto, an acknowledgement from INEGI, and a small gift. I would believe that you have geography and statistics inside this little tube, and I ignore what I have on this little box. And our second speaker, Arturo Blancas. I know that there's something regarding statistics and geography here, and I don't know what else. You'll figure it out. Thank you to all.